train her out of the way.
All right, guys. Hello, my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehan, and I'm with Swiftfire International, here today with Craig Walker and TruthSeekah, aka Derek. I hope I say this right. Grosskirth, am I saying it right?
Grosskirth, yes.
Yay. Well, definitely Craig found this guy or has been following this guy. And you know what? When I was looking back on your website, I think that I've actually seen your work before. And so it's cool to kind of like full circle come around here to some of this. But before we get started, I just want to remind everyone, please go to swiftfire.org. Please, swiftfire.org to get on the newsletter, because we've been having some censorship issues a little bit, and at least that way you know what's coming up and who's going to be on the show and resources and that kind of stuff. But hello everybody, how's it going?
Hi, I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I'm a massive fan of you both. Several years ago, I was out going, like, researching loads of deep things and what have you, and I sort of said to some friends, I said, what we really need is like somebody who's really spiritual, who has a podcast and really like goes out there and just invites loads of people on and talks to them and things like that. And somebody said to me, "Oh, have you ever heard of this guy called TruthSeekah?" And I was like, "Well, no." So I checked him out, and I was just absolutely blown away, like with all the guests and all the topics that he was talking about was exactly the stuff I was like researching at the time, and he has such an amazing perspective. So I'm totally thrilled that you agreed to chat to us today. Derek, do I just call you Derek or Mr. TruthSeekah?
TruthSeekah or Truth is fine for short, yeah.
Hey, that is not a bad way to be called, Truth. I'm loving that so much. Well, Karen's here and Wendy's here. We got a lot of people who are joining us. Truth, which is my favorite topic. Can you give us a little background just for those who may be in the audience who've not heard about your work and your book and all your amazing resources? Give us a little bit background and like where you are, take us up to speed where you are, and just introduce yourself.
For sure. Thank you. And thank you for the kind words, Craig, man. And thank you, Sharnael, for having me on here. It's a blessing. So again, my name is TruthSeekah. That's what I go by, my artist name. It started out with my hip hop name. Started out doing Christian hip hop in the churches and being a evangelist and going to youth groups and conferences, sharing my music and my story that way. And but things got a lot deeper over the years, and I really began to grow into that name, right? Of just seeking the truth early on for a lot of different subjects, you know, spirituality, the spirit world, and political stuff and stuff going on behind the veil and behind the curtains of the hidden hand and all that kind of stuff. And so I got really deep into that as a Christian. And as I began to study that stuff, I'm a hip hop artist. Like a lot of it just started coming out of my music, like whatever I was studying, researching, looking up, embodying, and spiritual encounters as well. I just started putting that stuff in my music, and you know, the church majority that, you know, me being a traveling evangelist, suddenly I became an enemy, you know, suddenly a free thinker, think for yourself, or maybe there's, you know, God loves other people besides you and the people in your church, you know, kind of thing. And so just going deeper into that was my spiritual awakening, you know, and seeing God in everything and in everyone, and which was so beautiful. And it was so foreign to me, where I had got into like debating people that believes different doctrines and different denominations and other religions, and really trained myself to be combative over the years. And I guess God had a beautiful way of breaking me down and allowed me to be able to now see the beauty in everything versus seeing what's wrong and demonizing people and perspectives. It's kind of like staring at it long enough until you see something beautiful. So that's been my journey. And there's been so many places in between, but I do spiritual, esoteric hip hop. I have a book. My book is Spirit Realm, Angels, Demons, Spirits, and the Sovereignty of God. I was blessed to have Jordan Maxwell write the foreword. My podcast, the TruthSeekah podcast, pretty much everything is branded under TruthSeekah. So it's a quick rundown of where I am now. So
That's awesome. And I believe that I first saw your work. Like I said, I just kind of figured out today who you were because
Yeah.
I just knew you by Derek, and then I started doing some more things. And I'm like, oh wait, I've watched a couple of your podcasts. So it's been a minute since I did, but I want to say it was like on holograms or the pituitary or pineal gland or something like way back in the time. But you have a lot of amazing topics in your book that I saw the list that when you sent me the link, and I was like, wow. I mean, what would you say is your like favorite topic to talk about right now where you're at?
It's a huge umbrella, and I really do like to talk about the spirits, like on many different levels, right? But, angels, demons, spirits, and the sovereignty of God. Like, what does that encompass? So this hierarchy of beings and their influence on us and our influence on them, our relationship. Are they enemies? Are they allies? And so in and out of that, there's so many questions and so many nuances. And so what I've done is kind of like been a student of the scriptures to show a lot of the stuff that was in the Bible that we've been told is new age or esoteric or occultic or whatever. But it's like, hold on, like the prophets and disciples, they had a school where they taught people about intuition and, using your sixth sense and spiritual giftings and the prophetic and speaking to angels and all of that stuff. So mostly the metaphysical as it pertains to the Bible. And so many Christians and Western Christianity has kind of given away all of the beautiful, fun things to, what they would call New Agers. And they use that word as a bad word, to the spiritual community. And so my experiences has been, to take it back and to give biblical references and personal experiences that go along with it. And so it's really helped a lot of people who are been in the church realm or have a relationship with Christ, but they don't have any grid to talk about these encounters, ghosts, spirits, magic mushrooms, whatever it is, just according to awakening. Most of them feel like they have to abandon their church and leave Jesus behind because it's not accepted in some circles. So I've kind of been a bridge for many of those people in the church and then those on the outside who have never had that encounter with Christ or the beauty of the scriptures,
Yeah. And Craig, for you being an artist and a musician and kind of definitely being a bridge and having some kickback at times, you want to speak into that a little bit too?
It's like you're describing my testimony as well. It's ridiculous. Not ridiculous. But yeah, it's I've had exactly the same experience where I've had what you describe as an awakening. I was fully fledged in the church, raised Christian as a child. So that was sort of something I wanted to find out about you. Sort of, were you raised Christian? Were you, where did it all start with you, and what happened?
Yeah. So do you know my story? Are you asking that you want to know or you don't know at all?
I genuinely don't. Sort of up until your podcast, I don't really know. Okay. So yeah. So
awesome.
Go on.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm from, I was born in Houma, Louisiana, which is really close to New Orleans.
What? Oh my God. That's
you're in the South, aren't you, Sharnael?
I'm in Louisiana. Yeah, right now. Yeah. That's crazy. So, okay, go ahead.
Born in Houma and lived actually on the Bayou Gauche. And, when I was a child, I had a encounter. I woke up in the middle of the night being pinned down to my bed by these shadow beings. And I couldn't have been any older than 4, but I remember it. And it led me to ask deeper questions as a teenager, as an adolescent, and watching movies that had that stuff in it, so I was drawn to the paranormal, supernatural, and occult type stuff, even at an early age, and even with music. So I got into a lot of that kind of stuff and just digging, and ended up listening to a lot of dark music as a teen, and ended up getting into witchcraft, trying to put spells on people and just digging through these books we're told to stay away from. Satanic Bible, Necronomicon, a lot of Wiccan books and things like that. So as a teen, I was really deep into that. until I met a warlock, like a full-fledged, like older guy who began to kind of train us and disciple us and share these stories with us that just, you know, lit a fire within me of like intrigue that we can, you know, have power, you know, like all the stuff you've seen in the movies and the supernatural, like, yeah, you can harness that and you can tap into it. So I ended up getting into the occult pretty deep as a teenager. And I guess I'm trying to find the context here, but so in 1998, I ended up going to a prayer meeting that somebody invited me to, and I didn't want to go. They was always inviting me to church and inviting me to these prayer meetings and Bible studies. I was like, nah, I'm not into that. I'm into the dark stuff and all that. But one day he invited me and he said, come to this prayer meeting. And I was like, I don't want to go. He said, well, this is going to be different. There's a prophet's going to be there. And so I was like, what's that? What's a prophet? He said, well, a prophet's like a Christian psychic. I was like, oh, really? A Christian psychic? Sure. This sounds fun. I'll come with you. So I ended up going to this prayer meeting in 1998. And it was just a beautiful experience. Like people were praying. They had like worship music on, and people were raising their hands and worshiping. And they looked like they were somewhere else. Like they were here, but their mind, their heart, their spirit was somewhere else. People were weeping and crying. Just a peaceful presence in that room. I can feel it now just talking about it. And somebody came and sat next to me on the couch and said, hey, Derek, do you want to ask Jesus to forgive you of your sins? And, you know, I didn't want him not to forgive me, right? I didn't know that this was a commitment to follow Christ or anything, but I was like, sure, I'd love for him to forgive me. I've done a lot of stuff. And so he leads me in this prayer, just asking Christ to come into my heart, acknowledging the work that he did on the cross and that kind of stuff. And when I did, I meant it. And I'm asking, I'm sorry, forgive me. And when he led me in that, I felt this beautiful heat enter my body and just begin to go throughout all of my cells, my DNA, and like cleanse me of all the bad stuff I had ever done, all the wrong, all the pain, the trauma, everything. And it was beautiful. I was just weeping and shaking and trembling. It was the baptism of the Holy Spirit that I received upon profession. So that was in 1998. I lived that life of a Christian, going to Bible studies and churches and so many prayer meetings where we would cultivate that encounter and other people would experience it for the first time and it would wreck and change their lives. And we loved it. We were addicted to it, you know, so good. And but when I got into school, I started getting around the wrong crowd and people who were into the drug culture and the same music and stuff like that. So I quickly started like hanging out with those people and started getting away from the church scene. And so that's when I got even deeper into the occult. And that's when I met the warlock and began to teach us and go deeper. But after meeting him, I ended up having an encounter where I stole something from him and somebody brought it back to him in front of me. And he ended up doing a summoning spell of this elemental type shade being that came and attacked me and my cousin, that physically manifested in a field and ran by and knocked us over and screamed and disappeared into thin air when it did. Wow. We woke up freaked out. And from that moment on, my health started to deteriorate. I started getting even deeper into the occult because I knew that there was power there, that if I could get good enough to summon these type of beings to go out and visit my enemies or steal things or astral travel into someone's nightmare, you know, all of these things as a teenager you see in the movie. So I started, like, that should scare me. Stay away, man. That stuff is real, you know. I was like, no, I want to be able to do it. I want to be able to summon these entities. So I started getting all the books, and we would get all these books and we would do all the rituals, every ritual we can find to see which one was real. Like if Satanism is real, I want to know it. If Wicca is real, if all of these other books are real, I want to know. So we started doing all of these chants and guided meditations and opening up my mind to be visited by these entities. And none of them worked until they all worked at the same time. Wow. And I had got to a place where I was living with my girlfriend back in Louisiana, and we would be just midday watching television, and I'd be sucked into a trance, sucked into a portal, and I couldn't control it. I would turn pale, my heart would race, and I couldn't breathe, and I'm just staring in space. But I'm in another realm, and there's lights, there's shadows, there's colors, there's voices, all speaking foreign languages, all at the same time. And I'd be crying, and I would come back to my body gasping for breath, like, what just happened? And it scared the hell out of me, and I couldn't control it. And they began to just pull me in and out of those portals at their will, and I couldn't understand what was going on, and I was going mad. I had demons talking to me. They would look at me through other people, and I would know things about them, and they would try to intimidate me. I would walk in public and feel like everyone was looking at me. I started going schizophrenic from opening up these doors to the occult without having some type of, guard on it, and just doing them all at the same time. And then they all opened up. And so with that being said, I remember the peace and the love and the grace that I had just a few years before that I found in Christ. And I knew that it was attainable, and I was losing my mind. I knew I was going to get jacked up on medicines, and if I was to tell people what I was experiencing. And so I opened up the phone book and called a bunch of churches and said, hey, I feel like I'm demon possessed. I need to pray with somebody. I called like 17 churches. One church called me back, and the pastor ended up coming to the house to pray with me and my girlfriend. And I had a spell at one night and just coughing up the blood, and it got really bad. And my girlfriend prayed with me. The next morning I woke up and just threw everything away. That was in September 7th of 2000 that I rededicated my life back to following Christ, and making that change for this distinction between light and darkness, good and evil. And so yeah, it's been a roller coaster, and it's been a journey ever since. And I've done the Christian experience, and but it's been going deeper, with me being a gospel rapper at the time, and then going into studies and experiences and encounters. And I feel like God's kind of brought me full circle to revisit a lot of the stuff that I was doing the wrong way. There's a righteous real behind everything. I know we've heard that term before. And I really resonate with it. And I have a passion for people who are in that stuff and who are seeking and want to learn, because this is a right way and a wrong way to do things. So that's the full conglomerate of why I'm here, my empathy, my story, how I got started, all that. Yeah.
That's amazing. Because funnily enough, a lot of times, you hear testimonies of people who have had sort of experiences in the occult and things like that. And then they might find Christ or whoever, and they go, and then I just left everything and I'm a full-blown Christian now. However, that's not what you've done, is it?
Yeah.
As in, like, you are talking to people publicly who are, into.
Well, I did that at first. I did that for 12 years, probably 10 years.
Yes. Well, what made you come back, or not come back, but what made you sort of want to reach out to people?
Yeah. I mean, well, see, that's this, people will say you went back, you went back to witchcraft. TruthSeekah is no longer a Christian, and he is now a Satanist. And it's like, you couldn't be anything further from the truth. Yeah. And so that was hard. That was a part of my dark night, was to embrace and embody the things that God was calling me into, because those people who loved you and were inviting you to their churches and paying you good and all that, now you become their enemy. And, and that was so hard. But so the first few years of coming out of the really dark witchcraft, like, I couldn't be around anything. I'm wearing a Metallica shirt right now. Like, I couldn't listen. If that music was on the radio, I had to turn it off. Yeah. Like, I would get scared, like walking in tattoo shops and I was still so sensitive to that realm. Smelling incense, people, if I smelled alcohol or smelled weed, like I had PTSD. It would trigger me because I scarcely made it out. So here we are, so many years removed of like, okay, now I'm actually friends with people who aren't Christian, or who are Hindus or Muslims or New Agers or whatever, or talk to ETs, whatever you want to say. So that really came from my studies of just, prayer and fasting for one, in my own devotion, and then studying the scriptures and finding a lot of those obscure verses in there and sticking out to me, and like, man, what does this mean? What does this mean? And nobody can tell you. And then just kind of going deeper and deeper with my studies. But from a Christian perspective, I had to find it in the Word. Like, I had to find it in the scriptures, or I didn't want nothing to do with it. And that taught me how to break the scriptures down, precept upon precept, line upon line, to retrain my brain and my faith and my doctrine to listen. If it's in there, then I believe it. And then what I end up finding is a lot of really cool stuff in there. Again, talking to angels, traveling through portals in the trance state is something that's talked about. Fasting, elemental spirits that travel through the fire and bring messages and communicate with you and go into the fire and leave, like some really cool far out stuff that is still for us today. So really reclaiming that. And at the time, the church, no, that's demonic. It's new age for the church. So that's what set me apart with my podcast. That I approach these things from me being a Christian, me, Bible believing, and referencing things back with people who talk about ascended masters. And I'm like, well, Jesus, they called him a master. That's what master, teacher, same thing. And he ascended. So Jesus is my ascended master, so I would find common ground with these people and see that we aren't so different after all. And so that was a huge thing of what I did with my awakening. And it was taboo at the time. It got me demonized, made fun of. TruthSeekah's talking about UFOs. She's talking about plant medicine. Now, but me being a forerunner, I know that what the work that I've done and being crucified and all that upon that cross, now it's opened up the door for so many people, Christians, to talk about their encounters with other spirits and with plant medicines, and all types of beautiful things are now part of the conversation. But back then it wasn't, it was rolling the dice because your boss may find out that you believe in aliens, or you're in the field on weekends trying to summon UFOs and communicate with angels in the night sky kind of stuff. And but yeah, everything's come full circle for me. Yeah.
Well, I can say that I can relate to quite a bit as far as like the bridge as well, just because not in rapping, I'm not a rapper, and but I do write music, and I've been in that field, and then ministry was my background, and so when I bridged over because of a health illness, I started looking. I did all the Western stuff, and it wasn't working, so I started looking into other things, and essential oils and crystals and different things were actually what saved me. And when, of course, I looked in the Bible, and this is all in there, and all the things that you're sharing is all in there as well. UFOs and my background with Montauk and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, trying to, talk about these things or actually talking about these things there. I got a little bit of that too, of just like, what is she doing? Yeah. She's a witch. She's this, it's like, dude, there's 1,600 references to essential oils in the Bible. Like, I mean, how much is that witchcraft when actually pharmakia is witchcraft? So what it's like, totally crazy. But, so yeah, I mean, I get that you run into it, and it's weird too, because I had an encounter with some beings, and one of them was named True, and that's what really shifted me like forever after in 2009. And to be accused of not living the truth when that is like my entire DNA, not just in action, but truth is a person. Truth is real, and all we are doing, sounds like, is actually just trying to see and discover what actual truth is, and not be stuck in these programs and religions and certain books and whatever. And so it used to get to me too, but it is what it is, and it's just where we're at. And I think it's interesting that you brought up the part about at first you couldn't even go to any of that, and because of the PTSD stuff, and there is something really to that. If without being completely healed, it can pull you into like a trauma loop, and then you get stuck, and you're going in these cycles. And I guess in some ways, I have a bit of PTSD with church. So
yeah, a lot of people do. I'm finding that out, for sure.
Yeah.
Podcast.
So and I love Christ. Like, Christ has the highest scalar waves of any human who ever walked the planet, except for Mary Magdalene, who is actually equal, which some people won't like me saying that, but I don't really care. It's just science. But so Christ is, my teacher and my master. And what's interesting is you mentioned, the Ascended Masters, and I just out of curiosity, working with Laura and all these other people who are kind of like just wherever, I've had several people who, when they meet me, they're like, oh gosh, we just, they either see Jesus or, oh, you're Ascended Masters, Jesus. And I get this from like random people like all over, like they just know that he walks with me. And it's kind of, it's super cool that just random strangers would know that or say that. And I gladly accept all the information of Christ and Christ consciousness. But Craig, you got anything?
Yeah, I'm having the conversation. Is that me or? There we go. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, in my journey, I mean, I've spoken about it quite publicly. I had an experience in about 2016 where I kind of discovered the universal Christ, and I mean, just that alone got me into trouble. With the church and with Christians, it's like, no, God's sending people to hell. He's not in everyone and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just, please. So that was like a doorway into because I was the kind of person that, I wouldn't read a book unless it was written by a Christian, like Rick Joyner or someone like that. Like if it was something else, no.
Like Rick Joyner.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not criticizing Rick Joyner. I'm just saying, I was that person. If it wasn't Christian, I didn't have anything to do with it, And my wife used to say to me, "Why don't you just read a book by an autobiography or something?" I'm like, "No, because I need to read Christian material, And I'd only listen to Christian music because I'd get contaminated, and these really ridiculous ideas that we had. And as a musician, that was incredibly stifling because I'm not sure if you were. I played drums for a band called Antecedent. When I sort of discovered this inner freedom, and I felt like I should go and study, not to participate, but to understand the occult. And I went on this journey of just looking at some really dark stuff, like you were saying. Again, I not to practice it, but I didn't know why at the time, why I was kind of looking at this stuff. But I was being pulled into it. I was like, it was interesting. And it had power, like you say. These people would do. They're very, very powerful. They're tapping into their divinity, but in a certain way. So what I did then was then sort of that kind of naturally flowed into what's called the disclosure, UFOs and entities and things like that. And I all of a sudden discovered, and I sort of correlated the fact that all these angels in the Bible, are they talking about UFOs? Are they talking about what they're called extraterrestrials? And all of a sudden, this whole new world opened up to me. Yeah,
me too. That's my story too. So
that's what I mean.
So much so.
Yeah, and I was just like, I made this correlation. I'm like, oh my word. And then when you look into the testimonies of these whistleblowers who are working with extraterrestrials in underground bases and things like this in present day, and you think this stuff isn't historic. This stuff in the Bible's been happening for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And it's still happening today. And I hear people sort of in the Christian mystic circles talk about the days of Enoch. And a lot of people are encountering Enoch, that he's still around.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating to me that the things he had to deal with when he wrote his book, it's come full circle. And we're a generation that we're experiencing these things, and we're realizing these things are still happening today. It's not an ancient thing, and it's not relevant today. It's completely relevant today. So it was so powerful for me to lose the religion and find the truth. And it doesn't I'm still a Jesus person, and I still when I go within, I still use the name of Christ and things like this. But that has opened up a whole new reality to me.
Yeah.
And when I started doing that, synchronicities just start going pop, 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 pop all over the place, to the point where I'm doing interviews with people that I've listened to for years. It's just what's happened? It's like life just falls into place all of a sudden. And it was when all these lockdowns started, sort of early 2020. I heard it's time to start speaking about it. People are going to be ready for this information, and I think everything that's happened over the past sort of 18 months, or whatever it is, people are crying out for some form of spiritual reality, and it like your podcast. I mean, how many are there? There must be hundreds and hundreds of podcasts there that people can go through and listen.
I just hit, I think, around 420 episodes off and on since 2010.
Wow. Yeah.
So you started in 2010.
Yeah. Before we knew it was a podcast, we called them radio shows.
That's when I
doing
started
our radio show on Blog Talk, you know.
We started the same year, but on YouTube, but they just pulled my channel. So I'm like starting completely over. I should have did the podcast thing, but yeah. Well, I love what you guys are saying. And, you know, it brings me to the topic that I kind of wanted to shift gears to is the supernatural, which is supposed to be natural, you know, having the DNA potential, the technologies within us already, you know, and then also too, you know, you mentioned, you know, UFOs and ETs and, you know, I don't know how much you know about my background, but with the encounters that I've had over the time, because of my language programming from Bible school and seminary, which I didn't grow up in church, but I did when I moved to Louisiana. I'm from military background, but when I came here, it was like you had to be in church or you just didn't have a friend. You know, it's a little bit different now. But so my only like filter for processing some of the things that were happening to me both before and after Christ was that, oh, these are angels. You know, it's like, you know, that's my only understanding of it. And now I understand that there's way more to that and, you know, just everything. But speak into that a little bit, if you don't mind, Derek.
Yeah, again, just going with Craig, like a huge part of my story, part of my awakening. It shifted things for me, like the UFO phenomena. It's really, I don't even like calling it that, because for me it's the angel phenomena, you know. And the reason I really resonated with the UFO stuff in that community, because they were the only ones who were talking about this, what's going on, you know, lights in the sky that are traveling, coming in and out of stars, and so much amazing stuff. So for me, you know, I watched the video in the late 2000s that I seen. His name was Prophet Yahweh. And so this was an older black guy who contacted the local news and said, listen, I have the ability to summon UFOs on command. And they're like, what? This is a crazy person. He said, no, if you bring your news crew out, I'll give you something for television. And they came out to an airfield and close to the airfield by the park. And he got this white clothes on. He pulls out a map and he says that he learned how to summon UFOs by using the Hebrew version of the Holy Bible. And so he raises his hands and he looks up and he says, dear Yahweh, as a sign to show these people that I'm not crazy and I'm not making this up, will you send your messengers and allow them to show up on camera? And they're all looking, and out of nowhere, this little orb of just appears and hovers, and they catch it on camera. Everybody who was there marveled. It wasn't there before. Then it was there. They called the Naval Air Base and the airfield to see if there was any, testing or anything in the sky that could be found. Nothing. So watching that video like lit something within me, because there was always a fascination with obviously the supernatural, but then the UFOs and stuff as well. So it was that. And then there was a website called BibleUFO.com by Patrick Cook, who was a big name. And it gives you all of these different biblical references, thousands of pages and papers of research in the Bible where it could have been talking about craft that were flying, these clouds, the cloud by day, the fire by night, being caught up in the cloud. Jesus comes back through the clouds and all of this kind of stuff. And a beautiful website that showed me the biblical references for a lot of interesting stuff. But he didn't just have that. He also had the paranormal stuff on there too, just showing that they were, shamans in the Bible and dragons and so much, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and so much cool stuff. So that led me to start going out for myself in the wee hours of the morning. At the time, I was working a job where I could be out traveling on the interstate. If I was fast at my job, I could about 4 a.m, I could be somewhere that was secluded. I wouldn't be bothered, and it'd be an open field. So I would jump off the interstate and find these secluded places and get out there and try to summon UFOs.
Wow.
But it was in this relationship with God of like, again, going through Christ and say, Father, if there's anything out there that has my greatest good in mind, that's not going to harm me, that they are your messengers, the cherubim, the seraphim, the Raphaim. I was, my studies were going wild about the morning stars traveling, the morning stars singing out with their glory, and understanding what a seraphim is. The word seraphim means a fiery serpent. A chariot in the Old Testament are vehicles of light. And and the people I was studying with were like, chariots are out there. They're watching over God's people. And I was like, Lord, let me see them. I want to see. I would go out there night after night, morning after morning, until I started seeing stuff. And I just started seeing stuff that blew my socks off. Like I said, like stuff appearing out of nowhere, stuff coming down right above, like craft coming down right above my house, like fleets of UFOs, summoning a fleet of UFO during the day. They would show up and it would be these like 70 black bars in the sky, and they're just these rods. And then they would turn and shift and they would show light. They would turn into light. And then they would keep going, and then they would disappear. They would cloak, and then they would turn back, and they would go to the black bar. And I'm like, what am I seeing? Like, it made it heavenous for real. Yeah. Like it is a place past the stars where these beings travel back and forth from heaven to earth, just like the Bible says that they do. Michael travels, and there's this a route that they take, and it changed it for me. Mm-hmm. I had to put it in my music. I had to keep going out. I had to keep studying. But the Christian perspective was like, yeah, that's true. Be careful, because those are demons. Yeah. And they want to kill you. They want to kill you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like the Bible, seraphim, man, the fiery, and there's so many scriptures that talk about these light beings that traverse the sky, and they're our friends, and they've been watching over us since the beginning. And it's like these beautiful encounters that increase creativity, awe and wonder of life and God and the angels. And they're not just a theory of, we read about these beings that nobody knows. They're real. Like, and so having these encounters with demons, for sure, I definitely encountered that. They're real. But having encounters in the angelic as well. And that changed everything for me.
Wow. So just from your point of view, is there a difference between what would be called angels and extraterrestrials, or are they the same thing? Is it interchangeable? What's your view on that? Because I've heard some people say, angels are sort of like light beings in other dimensions, and extraterrestrials are like humans, in other planets.
That's
what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, that's interesting. So my take is it could be both, right? To say that it's only this or only that, we really get into trouble quick. But I'd say my experiences is like, that they're light beings, and like Enoch says that when they have the ability to travel at the speed of light, and so when they're traveling the heavens and the multiverse, they are light, they are colors, so that allows them to travel as fast as they want. But as they wish, they're able to take upon the appearance of men. So like they're in the heavens, they're traveling, the Bible says God is a consuming fire and light and all this kind of stuff too. So, but as they wish, they can travel to earth and take on the appearances of men and women, or whatever really they want. So that's in Enoch. It's also a scripture in Psalms that says the Lord maketh his ministering spirits, his angels, as a flame of fire. It's reiterated in Hebrews as well. And people talk about that just means them being on fire for God. No, they were literally made out of fire. That's what the seraphim are. So there's many different rankings in the hierarchy of just the angelic. And so we're not even talking about advanced civilizations and our brothers and sisters and those kind of things that are out there. I will say this, there's a lot. So with the fear of, hey, Derek, be careful. You're going to call a ship in and it's going to abduct you, because there are dark entities out there that you're going to mess with and bring in, and you don't know what you're playing with. And so that there's a little fear there. And to kind of step into that, you got to step into faith to be able to see the miraculous and see something you've never seen before. You got to access a level of faith that those around you got to kind of step it up a notch. So for me, with that fear, I read the scripture that says that if you pray to your Father and you ask for a a fish, he's not going to give you a serpent.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask for a loaf of bread, he's not going to give you a stone. How much more, will he give you the Holy Spirit? And so I took that principle, that universal principle that, listen, if I ask God for an angel, for one of the messengers that have my greatest good in mind, he's not going to send a demon to come get me. And so things lit up for me and changed. So I do think that the fallen angels, because people like to, say UFOs and aliens are fallen angels. My belief is that they fell. They were kicked out of heaven. Someone said today, and even this, when you get into the scriptures, like heaven is the sky. But someone said, when you jump, I listened to this on a podcast last night, when you jump, you're in the heavens. When you're in the atmosphere, they were kicked out of the sky. You cannot be up here with us. You're causing wickedness. They were cast to the earth. So they're not flying. I don't believe that they're flying around. Demons are in spaceships flying around above us trying to kidnap us. I think that they're down here with us. I do believe in fallen angels and entities, but they're down here with us, leeching off of mankind. So I believe that there is an order in the heavens. There's an order in space, an intergalactic order that we're trying to evolve to. And us as a species, I think we're catching up. There's some stuff going on, but there's a spiritual order. And to take your place amongst the stars, you have to ascend to that level.
Yes.
So I think that's where we're at. So with that being said, they're good, or at least, better than us. You know what I'm saying? Even if they're like civilization, star family, star people, for sure. But even at the same time, though, if a star person came with advanced technology and dealing with humans, we'll call them angels. We wouldn't know the difference unless they corrected us.
Right.
Like we start worshiping them and they're like, hey, don't worship me.
Yeah.
In the name of the one. You know what I'm saying? So we see instances like that in the scriptures as well. So they could be one and the same there. They've learned to turn their bodies into vehicles of light. They've learned to access their light body or their Merkaba.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
There you go. The Merkaba. And I love that because the Merkaba is the word for chariot in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Chariots of fire.
Yes. I see them all the time. I mean, no matter where I go. I mean, we went to a SETI and we watched James just summon like crazy. And then I was like, I didn't even think to do that. But we were just in Montana a few weeks ago and I was at Laura's and we were just sitting on the thing and we were both just looking up and I'm like, there's a few, it's like they're there. I mean, I wasn't summoning anything but they just like to show off and be there and whatever that is. But yeah, I was going to bring up the whole Merkaba thing. And what's funny too is, when I got a car recently, I was like, this is my new spaceship. And everyone was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, the Earth's in space, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, and we are in space because the Earth is in space. And therefore, my car is a spaceship. It's a vehicle that's getting me around. I'm not in the air or in space driving it, but it's still, we're all walking around in space. So, yes, the heavens are cosmic, and there's so much great information to break down here. What you got, Craig?
Just loving the conversation. Because these are all the questions that that are going through my head at the moment. Like, I hear people sort of in Christian mystical circles saying, I went to heaven. That's a really, really broad statement. What is heaven? And what are these experiences that you're having? I mean, are they going to shifting dimensions, going to another dimension? Are they going to another planet? Are they going to another reality? These are my questions. And I'm like, I want to ask these people, how do you perceive, going to heaven is just a really, really broad brush. And I just think for me, I've longed for these experiences my whole life, and I've always, I spent years of my life like praying, God, I'd hear like all these testimonies of people going to heaven or having an angel appear in the bedroom and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, I don't feel to have anything like that as a kid. So I was like, I'm really, really hungry for this. And I mean, I've done some crazy stuff and I have had experiences since. But this whole idea that, and I think one of my motives at the moment, because I'm sort of looking into, well, have been for quite a while, and Sharnael's really helped me with this, looking into kind of the UFO phenomena, as it's called, and what have you, is to undemonize it. You know, Sharnael and I have interviewed a lady called Elena Danana. I don't know if you've heard of her.
I don't think so.
You should have her on your podcast. She's an experiencer. She's had, you know, abductions, and she talks very openly about it. She's a French lady living in Ireland. And you know, in religion, we're taught to be afraid of these things. Like, if it's not some kind of humanoid with wings, it's a devil, you know. And I'm just like, that's just not true. That's so small-minded. I mean, it served its purpose for a time, but we're discovering now more and more that there is so much more out there, and not just out there, like you said before, they're here as well. They walk among us.
Yeah.
And so what's your take on, you know, the reptilian side of things? You know, that's a hot topic.
Yeah.
You know, I watched Lord of the Rings recently with my kids, and I was just like, my mind was blown with like, oh my word, you've got all these beings, and then you've got these horrible orc things underground. You know, and I was just thinking, oh my word.
Yeah.
We always think hell is down, you know, that was a religious interpretation. And then in hell were all these kind of horned beings called devils and what have you. And I'm thinking, well, I know my thoughts. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we'll go there. I mean, they're trying to, you know, we're hearing a lot of UFO stuff in the news now, and the Pentagon is releasing videos and encounters, and they're releasing papers, you know, that were classified. And so now I feel like they're trying to control the agenda so that they can control the narrative, because disclosure is happening. You can easily go to, if you want to know bad enough, you can get out there by yourself and look like I did, or if you need help, you can go see James Gilliland, you know, and go up to the ranch at East City, and you're most likely going to see something, and it's going to change you spiritually. It does something within you. So disclosure is happening. So I feel like they have to come out. We're living in really weird times right now. That's, you know, everyone knows that. There's not even a theory. This is very strange days that we're living in, and a lot of this stuff's coming to a head. And so my personal beliefs with that is it definitely stems in the Bible. The going back to the garden, and it speaks about the seed of the serpent seed, that God would put enmity between the seed of the woman, or the Christ seed, or the seed of humanity, that fire, that we're all part of that seed, and the seed of the serpent. But in the end, you will crush his head. So there's a serpent iconography there. And so many people will say, you know, maybe that could be talking about what we've been hearing about reptilians and these beings, the draconians even. So I believe that those are our leaders. Those are our world leaders from the beginning. And a lot of things are coming to a head right now. And they have to give up power for this awakening to happen, and sharing and caring and everything what's happening in the hearts of men and women across the world right now. There is an awakening. It has been happening since, let's say, 2010, 2012, but it's speeding up. And so they have to do something. So I believe that those people are wicked. And I believe that the good guys are out there, and they're, you know, I do think they're looking out for us. I don't think that they can intervene right now, that we're on our natural, ascension and our progress to take our place amongst the stars. And I feel like they're rooting for us. They're giving us signs and wonders and many things like that. They've been here since we were primitive, since we were finding out what fire was. They were here watching over us. There's cave art and paintings and iconography, even within the religious text, which I love, you know, the images of Jesus on the cross and little dudes driving starships behind them, you know, and like, that's amazing.
It is.
So many of them. So yeah, I think that the good guys are out there and bad guys are in control. They're feeding us food that's not real. It's made out of plastic and wood, and they're putting this in our food as filler and all types of stuff that they know is going to kill us, but they give it to us anyway. Like, there's something to be said with empathy. So many of these people, and I don't want to get too dark. I hate that we have to talk about this, and I'm trying to watch my language as well. But you know, there's a lot of bad people that are ruling this planet, and they have to give up their rulership, and they have to give up their throne, if you will. And so I do think at some point I think and I hope that we will get some assistance from our space brothers and those who say, hey, we let you guys do it, whatever that means. We're going to help the good ones, the good guys. And so there's a lot of theories that weave in and around that, 51% good. As long as the planet can do that, I think we're there though. We're making progress for sure.
Great.
Well, with the whole conspiracy theory labels and all that stuff from Mockingbird and all the different projects, I've just kind of moved from conspiracy theorists to spoiler alert, because so many things that we said 18 months ago have been proven over and over, even though it's censored and pulled down, and stuff still leaks out, and it's kind of like igniting people to do some more research. And I think that the last 18 months has been the biggest red pill that we've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And but like the books of like Thomas that talk about manifesting and different things, all these extra books that I was told, don't go there because this is gonna, that's satanic, you might catch a demon or, whatever. But in the meantime, there's underground stuff going on. I was underground. There's stuff that happened in Montauk that is just deplorable, and it's still happening. And there's kids involved in, my lab stuff. And
my lab for sure. Yeah.
It's, there's so many things that I don't know how much people are aware of or not, but it doesn't make it not real. I mean, still fact. Fact is still facts. Truth is still truth. Perception is, up to the person and the individual. But I just encourage people to have the courage to allow and have permission to dig and to research and to look into and to remember and surrender to the technology already here. Because if we're not God in action and making choices and remembering how powerful we are as creators and walking in those things that are supposed to be normal, you talked about the dark side. They are not taking a day off. Like, no, they are active, and they're, like you said, both of you had talked about how powerful and the spells and different things. We should be doing that. Like, where are we? And it's, anyway, you want to speak into that a little bit?
Well, I'm trying to, like there's, I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to take our tools back, our arsenal, our spirituality back, and share it with more people. And it's working.
Yes,
it is working for sure. And, we do have a lot of tools. And I remember just, with me being in entertainment with music, it's a form of entertainment. And I used to hate that word, like, an entertainer. No, I'm something deeper. I'm a prophet. I have a message but the entertainment is powerful. And I would hear these lectures and watch these videos about what the Illuminati is doing and the way they're brainwashing people and putting hidden messages and colors and lights in the music. I was like, well, let's do that for good. Like, I heard about that there was like dark, like demonic prayers that go into music and chantings and mantras that are turned down. So it's like, you know what, I'm going to do that. So I made it a point that in my music, I began to pray and to embed in the audio what I want the experiencer to feel. So if it's about angels, if the song is about angels, I'm praying, I'm getting in the spirits and praying into the microphone. God, I pray that you will encounter them. I pray that you open up the eyes of their understanding, that you show them how deep your love is and the angelic realms. And I just through the whole song, and I just turn it down. So I say that you can't hear it, but you can feel it. And then people are sending me all these messages like, ever since I started listening to your album, synchronicities have been increasing. I've seen my first UFO this week, and so all this beautiful stuff. I'm like, wow, it's working. These are amazing tools that we have, to program ourselves or deprogram ourselves from the lies and the wickedness that's out there. So take our tools back.
Yes.
So good. That is so good. Like saying, I'm going to have to do some of that in our next album because we're currently writing an album ourselves. I'm just going to be like putting little messages in there.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, last night I was in the studio, and it's the first time I've been in the studio for probably 3 decades, which is sad, but just connected back with some of my writing buddies and was I had went in to record my book because everyone's been saying to get the book on audio.
Yeah.
I don't know why I've been just like resistant about it, but finally I was like, okay. And I am telling you, I did what you are saying, where I went in there and I went past all of my like comfort zones and whatever, had to get over myself and just do it. And there were so many miracles that literally happened right in the studio that last night. It was 6 hours and stuff was, it was insane, crazy what happened. And I see, as that recording went out and is going to be available to the public, that's an activator. Like, and there's something in our sound, our authentic sound, what we're even doing right now, your podcast and our shows. But these are activators with code that go and unlock the fields for people to just like go, I never thought about that. And all of a sudden something's clear. And, you know, the guy that I was with last night, he was literally buzzing. I mean, he was buzzing around the studio after he was like walking around. He's like, dude, like I hadn't had no drugs or I hadn't drinking. Like he was like, I never feel this high. I was like, something's going on. And he had some stuff going on with his marriage the day before and said that he, you know, his wife was going to leave. And he was like, I'm just so clear. I'm just so clear. And, you know, he's like, can I have your book? And blah, 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 blah. And I was like, dude, I can't believe it took me this long to do this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too.
Oh my God. Why did I take, you know, this 2-3 years to finally get this on audio? And it had to be my voice. I knew, as much as I didn't want it to be my voice, that, you know, I've bought other people's books and it was like some dude reading it from England or whatever. No offense, Craig. And but you know, there's something to the energy and the authenticity and the diversity of the person who is carrying what they're carrying, to send it through music or art. I mean, profit, but also you're an artist, and God is the best and biggest artist of all. Our Father who art in heaven, which is, you know, the sky and everywhere else. So it's just something, it's just cool. I love it.
Yeah, we're creators, man. We're made, the Bible says we're made in the image and the likeness of a creator God. And I just like to, I know how I feel when I create something and when people resonate with it and you like it. Oh, that's dope, huh? Man, I really love your music and your song, and it does something for me, and I can't wait to show it off. And I'm even, so I understand, I got that from my Father. You know, I got that from my creator. And so I try to put myself in his shoes of like, and when he creates something, you know, it's like, hey, did you find this? Like, did you see the sunset? What'd you think? I painted it just for you. Look at the cloud formation and see how the clouds are, the sky is turning colors and purple. What about the Grand Canyon? You've been there? And I'm like, oh, the majesty. Oh my God. He's like, yeah, I made that. I made that for you. I want to show you. And then we get, so those are things on the earth that anybody can go look at. And then also we got dimensions in realms. Have you been to this realm? Oh, I made this realm that no people don't really go there a lot, but there's a realm that you can meditate and that you can tap into. Have you seen it yet? Have you been to this place? I want you to see it. So there's so many things that we you know we can experience and encounter that I think God is like, you know, maybe a little bit offended that you don't want to, kind of thing. You know, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that today. Like, listen, man, like, wouldn't it suck for individuals to pass away and to never encounter that beauty of gazing into a lover's, the love of your life's eyes, like to hold a child, to pet a dog, you know what I'm saying? Just everything that this life has to offer for us, and like these sensations and feelings, to be fully supernatural, fully divine, and fully human at the same time. And so I'm really big on that, enjoying this realm and this experience, and with gratitude that I can do. I say, man, I give gratitude back to the Creator. Thank you, man. This is amazing. And it just bring me to tears, but it's a beautiful place to live your life from, that everything is a blessing. As far as my story goes, listen, I almost died 20 years ago and many other occasions. So every day is a blessing. Every day on, you know, here is, you know, I'm thankful. There's a gratitude there. And I think we should live our lives that way. And I think that opens up the divine. I think that opens up portals and realms that weren't available to you. You weren't privy to those veils before, you stepped into it with gratitude. Because listen, there's realms that are only accessible to you if you're depressed and you're a drunk. There's other realms that you've never encountered until you go down that road. And we've been there. It gives us a contrast. There's a contrast in this world. So to be thankful, man, for everything beautiful, I would say, and the dark stuff too. I'm thankful that it exists, because the light wouldn't be as bright unless you sat in darkness. It says that those who sat in the darkness beheld a great light. If you wasn't in darkness, you wouldn't appreciate the light. It would just be something that's always on, and you've always been a part of it. But no, I've been through some pretty dark times and scarcely made it out. So I'm thankful for every ray and every fractal and every beam of light and every color, for sure.
That's so good. I shared a status today. I mean, with everything that's going on, I think, humanity is being prodded to wake up at the moment. The ascension's inevitable. It's just how long is it going to take, I suppose. And I think it's in my experience, and I don't know if it's the same with you guys. You think, having this spiritual awakening would be sort of glorious, and you're floating around everywhere. But for me, it was a really hard time to lose and realize so much that I believed was not true. Yeah. And I lost my sense of identity. And I was just like, what's even real? What's even true anymore? And it's a real dark night of the soul. It's like, I don't even know what to think anymore. But then when you get to that place, like you just said, it's so brilliantly, then you begin to choose gratitude. You begin to choose what is the beautiful things in life. Holding my kids at night, that's one of the most beautiful things I could ever dream of. And I get to be here with these beautiful children and hold them and love them and father them. And it's like all of these things that we just take for granted all of a sudden become so precious. Yeah. And I think that's really key to ascension. Is that we find the beauty in the present moment, in the here and now, that if we're not always waiting for something to happen, we love every minute of every day. And I think that helps with mental illness and depression. It's a real lesson to learn. Yeah. But then the interesting thing is, when you resonate on that level of gratitude and you're enjoying your life, then as creators, you begin to manifest more and more and more in from this place. And it's like life just becomes blissfully glorious. And it's like, wow, I never knew it was so easy. Yeah. So that's so beautifully said.
I'll say this, my one critique on the heaven, ascending into the heavens movement, is that there's this aspect of escapism that I don't like my situation, but when I meditate, I go to this place where all is good, and I'm talking to Enoch, and I'm talking to there's friends there, there's beings that want to say hello, and it can get into some really weird stuff too, like people trying to win demons to Christ in the ethers and stuff, and get them to say the sinner's prayer and show them that it gets into weird. So there's this there's another world that exists in the dream state, but you're using it to escape this realm that we're supposed to be fully present. Yes. So now there's a lot of things that happen when we go into meditation and those states, and we encounter beings and entities, even as within our own mind or psyche, and we battle things. There's so much that happens, and I feel like it shifts something when we open our eyes. Like, okay, I overcame that thing that has been chasing me my whole life. I did it through hypnosis. You're putting yourself in hypnosis. I did it in a dream. You're hacking the dream state. So I feel like there is progress that's being made psychologically through meditation and through the trance state. But it's when people kind of get addicted to that, maybe like the movie The Lawnmower Man, where this guy was just addicted to a video game that he would just put himself in, and all this stuff on the outside just kind of deteriorating and going away. So the one thing I'd say about that, the critique, is that we use a lot of things for escapism, versus like being present in here and now and having impact on the world. Like, yeah, you got impact on these spirits and saving babies in the dream state, but listen, you can save babies with your eyes open too. Like, there's people out here, there's cults, there's all kind of wickedness going on that you can use your voice. You can do detective work and find out where they are and tell on. Listen, there's so much that you can do. And there's those people who would just kind of do it in the dream state kind of thing. So don't know if you guys have any comments to that. I'd love to hear what y'all have to say.
I definitely agree. It's about being in the now, and we are called to be here and now, like not like 20 years ago, and not in this other dimension or whatever. Although I believe in there's different planes and dimensions and ways to do things, but I mean, even when I go like out to eat, which I don't do often, or wherever you go, and you can see people are on their phones. That's a whole different dimension as well, is like that escapism, whether it's entertainment or movies or Netflix or just being on Facebook all day and getting sucked into that, so but missing out on like the people sitting in front of them that they're actually having dinner with, but they're not having dinner with, and I get caught up in it too, just because a lot of my work is through a computer, which happens to be on a phone, so we can all bounce around and have that balance and try to figure out like how to, I call it the box. And my friend Leslie and we talk about, well, there's a box within the box within the box within the box, and there's just all these little things where it's like, oh, I'm here now, but I'm also on this TV and then that little box, and but I'm in a box house too, so it's like, and then we're in Prison Planet, if you want to call it that or whatever. So there's just all these little our own realities and dimensions too, and but we are coming up, we're past the hour, and
I could keep going for ages.
I know we're gonna have to have you back for sure, but this has just been such an amazing conversation. And where can, like, any last words, and also just where people can find you and all that? And Craig, same, on your crystal shop and your website and everything, if you want to just go around, any final words and just how these people can continue with your work and conversation. For
sure. Well, thank you to both of you guys for having me on, and it just means the world. You can find my work at TruthSeekah.com, Truth SEEKAH.com. All my podcasts, my music, my videos, book, everything that I do, my guided meditations, all that stuff is available there. And or any social media, type in TruthSeekah podcast on iTunes and YouTube and all that stuff. Go live on there with the show. So thank you for having me. It means the world.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, if I could just thank you personally, Derek, because sorry, Mr. Truth or whatever it is. Something when my studies and all this kind of thing, and in my research, there's been times when I've been sort of like going, am I going too far out here? Am I really losing my mind? And I always think to myself, I'm nowhere close to where TruthSeekah's at, so it's all right. I must be safe. You really set a benchmark in my, in my awakening. That like, no, I'm not going crazy. We've got TruthSeekah. He's there. But yeah, like I said before, I'm on Facebook if people want to connect with me there. I have 2 accounts. My second account is fast becoming my main account because I just keep getting banned on my original one. So anyway, I'm in a band, Nth Ascension. I can find us at nthascension.com. I'm a drummer. And also my wife and I run a crystal shop, crystalfalls.co.uk. Go and check us out.
Awesome. Well, I want to just thank you both for being with us today, and thank you all who are watching too, all of you guys, whether you're here live with us or you catch the recording later. Definitely go to Swiftfire.org. Go to Swiftfire.org, where you can find all the resources and different videos and interviews that we have, all the classes, consultations, biofeedback, different all kinds of things you're going to find there and have a good time. So definitely get on the newsletter, though. That way, no matter where we are, you still have access to knowing what's going on, and I can send some things out. But thank you guys again for your time, and I will be catching y'all later. We'll have to do this again, but appreciate all your mission here, and just as we co-mission, I hope that we can see some things happen and some shifts. And for you guys who are watching too, don't forget, you can share this. Please share, tag, get some more other people in on this conversation, because you never know who might listen to this or see it, and then that activates their code and starts something of a revolution and the creative path for an aha moment for those people too. We're all just in this together, and we can do our part by sharing and creating content and doing all of that. So you guys all do you where you're at. I love all of you for watching, and just bless all of you, and talk to you guys next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.